those people who just get annoyed when notifications randomly pop up on the screen of my computer while I'm working. The most annoying of them all would be recently installed software requires your computer to restart to complete the installation. During such times, I just feel like telling my computer, will you just give me what I asked for without taking me in rounds and disturbing what I've been working on? I am not tech savvy, but during such moments, I just end up letting my computer be. I click continue, I click restart, and I click reboot, sometimes without even fully understanding the meaning of what I am agreeing to. I only get to understand and appreciate the importance and significance of the reboot after the process is complete. It took me a year to realize that computers reboot and thus create upgrades much more frequently than human beings do. There is always a human being to let a computer reboot, but is there a device or a creature of some sort to facilitate rebooting in human mindsets and behaviors? Well, one that I found is neither a device nor a creature. It's a pandemic. Human beings are programmed to compete, not because they are unkind, uncaring, or uncouth, but because nature calls for survival of the fittest among all living things. No matter how much we try to run away from this or distance ourselves from it, we have all, at one point or the other in our lives, felt like outdoing, outperforming, or outrunning another human being. We have all been there. It might be for minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years, perhaps. For some, it's even a lifestyle. This is because competition is surely a part of us that we cannot detach. But competition is not as bad or unkind as we perceive it or present it, but rather the morality, acceptability, and applicability of competition is highly dependent on the level of competition at which one operates. By gradually ascending up its three levels, one can master competition and use it to their own benefit and the benefit of their community. It's unfortunate that what most people think is the highest and best way of competing is actually the lowest. Here we are trying to prove in the academic setting that we know much more than the next person does and we can do much better than they do. This method is effective for some students, but not all, to get the grades. It is unfortunate, however, and quite disappointing that this method cannot always be applied in life beyond the four walls of a classroom. This is because we're getting educated not just for grades, for a results leap, but for life. We realize that this kind of competition is fragmenting society, even in sectors apart from education, because it has been ingrained in most of us from the grassroots. Taking home out of the picture, school is where we spend most of the time. And there, rivalry, anxiety, jealousy is allowed to seep into society, particularly the young people of school-going age, through this competition. Most education systems nurture this competition by setting up a grading system based on letters, numbers, or whatever symbols. And when this is done, it forms a basis of comparison. And with the comparison done, nobody really wants to be at the bottom. We all want that place in the top. But the failure to prove that we are smarter than the next person, we know much more than they do, and we are better in every way than the next person, can be tragic, whether or not the victims are aware of it. I have seen my friend's sister attempt suicide, not because she had failed or she was not intelligent, but rather she did not manage to get that position in class that she wanted. And now such a student with great potential has had their academic performance dwindle over the years after surviving the suicide attempt. This is not because the poison had any effect on her intellect, but rather, according to education psychologist Robert Williams, failing to prove that we know much more than the next person can cause trauma, which is an effect of decreasing academic performance in students. It's now hard to uproot the weed in its maturity and bloom because most students believe that proving that we know much more than the next person does is the highest level of academic achievement that can ever be attained. But take a student who achieved that at the age of 8. Will they stop going to school because of that? Will they stop pursuing their academic endeavors because of that? No. At that point, they will move up the ladder of competition and begin to compete with themselves. It ceases to become just a statement for social media posts where they say that the only competition I have is the person I was yesterday. We take it so lightly because the statement has become so cliche and perhaps overused. But in this case, it becomes a reality. When there are so many people to compete with in the world, why not compete with that one person you can stalk, see, hear, and understand 24/7, 365? By being you, you have already hacked into your own system, and you can capitalize on your personal capabilities with very little effort. Unlike the first level of competition, here, realistic goals can be set and met basing on our knowledge of our own strengths, weaknesses, and unique selling points. This level of competition is the epitome of maturity, as people collaborate and edify each other and cease to view each other as rivals, but rather fellow competitors in 7.9 billion different competitions. I take it like peeling an onion with infinite layers, because there's always a version of each person that they themselves can outdo. By peeling that onion with infinite layers, we find a stronger, fresher, and thicker layer beneath, always. But according to author Edith Wharton, monotony is the mother of all deadly sins. And in this case, the sin of monotony comes when we are tempted to fall back to the first level of competition, when we stay for too long at the second level of competition. Although it's good and healthy to compete with ourselves, it can get very monotonous and boring. This is because we are built with an innate longing for upgrades. So we'll always feel the urge to move up the ladder of competition and do something different. But what else is there left to compete with when we have competed with all people? We have competed with the people around us, we have competed with ourselves. That is when we are catapulted to the apex, the highest level of competition, the highest rung of the ladder. And here, we'll be competing with challenges, barriers, and records. Here, monotony ceases to be a problem because there are always new and evolved challenges to address and records to break. Always. Yeah, I've always wished that students operate at this dimension in their academic endeavors, for it is the best way to succeed in academics. It's unfortunate that the human mind is difficult to change. It interprets any form of change as a threat and tries by all means to resist it. So human beings need a trigger to coerce them and compel them to change and also to sustain that change over time. Thanks to the coronavirus of 2019, human beings have received an upgrade in their mindsets and behaviors, and in the process, rebooted. But although we have received this upgrade, we are only able to utilize it as much as we are aware of it. I spent a year learning online when the virus hit our continent. During the first days, it was bliss. Waking up at 8 a.m. to attend class at 8 a.m. in my pajamas in the comfort of my bed, multitasking my Instagram feed and a live class, and avoiding teachers whose assignments I had missed. I mean, what else could an 18-year-old want? But now, with a sober mind, getting to face reality, I was separated from my classmates. And in that sober state, I got to feel and notice anxiety and uncertainty grow rapidly and deeply in me. This is because I did not know how good or how bad I was doing. Not because my teachers didn't send marks, they did, but because I was afraid of settling for grades that were good in my own opinion, but not good enough in comparison with the way my classmates were performing. I could not find out how well the other students are doing from behind the screen. So it was a hard, tough and dry truth to swallow. But at the end of the day, it was palatable that I had only one standard to work with, and that was my standard. When I got to realize this and became comfortable in my own skin, I got an upgrade to the second level of competition in my academics. I got motivation to work based on my own circumstances, my own capabilities, my own strengths and weaknesses. I got to focus on myself because it was locked down. I was alone. When I first arrived home after the closure of schools, the wearing of masks, washing of hands, and frequent sanitizing was surrounded with so much prejudice. Doing such things could attract comments like, "She's a coward," "She is self-important," until the reality of the pandemic eventually saturated the society back at home. From there, it became a culture to wash hands, wear masks, sanitize, not because it was enjoyable, but people moved to a phase of trying to preserve life. This was driven by a strong fear of death, which was perpetuated by the huge death toll, which was being constantly thrust into every face, consistently and frequently by the media and the news. That way, even the young people of school-going age, who knew very well that they would be least affected by the virus during that time, would still wash their hands, sanitize, and wear masks to keep the people around them safe. This way, people moved from a self-centered way of life to a leave no one behind kind of way of life. While we were wearing masks, washing hands and sanitizing, we were not aware that we were defeating the negative impacts of survival of the fittest that were in us. You would say that we cannot defy nature or defeat nature. Yes, but we can suppress the negative impact of laws and concepts in nature. Survival of the fittest is a concept in biology that suggests that species that are best adapted to their environment will continue to survive while the rest go extinct. Thanks to COVID-19, we got to have a mindset and a willingness to preserve each other's lives and not focus on ourselves, even those that were not adapted. were protected by the actions of those that were well adapted. And as we were doing this, we got an upgrade to the highest level of competition. And when this leave no one behind kind of strategy is applied in academic setups, students do not only survive school, but they thrive in school. They do not only thrive individually, but they thrive collectively. By shifting our focus of attack from the people around us, the person next to us, to the barriers and records ahead of us in our competition, we are able to conquer big societal problems instead of a probably unknown and insignificant classmate. While we are in the midst of another wave of the pandemic, we still celebrate the seasonal victories that we have had over the previous waves. This is because we moved from a selfish kind of approach to a communal fighting strategy. Why then would we not do the same and upgrade and reboot and move up the ladder of competition in our academic endeavors, applying the lessons that we got from the pandemic to succeed academically? Thank you.